You are listening to Keystone's Stock Talk Show, episode 282. If this is your first time listening, then thanks for stopping by. This podcast is produced every week for your enjoyment, and show notes are found at www.keystocks.com. Come back often, and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or on iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter at Keystocks and on Facebook. And keep submitting your stocks via the usual social channels or at our website, keystocks.com, for our Your Stock Our Take segment. And we just might review your stock in an upcoming show and let you know if it is a buy, sell, or hold. Today is our annual prediction show where we take a look back at 2024 and make bold predictions for 2025. So let's get right to the show. I'm going to welcome my co-host, Mr. Aaron Dunn, the Killer Bees, Brett and Brennan. How are you guys doing?
Great,
well,
great. Glad to be back of a new year.
That was the best intro I've ever done. Yeah. I got to say. Yeah, I don't have to do a long intro. That's what really
go on about. Yeah,
I really love the show.
One. Yeah. No, but the start of the new year here, so it's exciting, right? And big news this morning.
Yeah, I'm going to make a prediction on that news. So
really? Maybe nobody's heard.
We recorded this before that news came out.
Yeah.
There is big news. Trudeau is resigning. Crazy.
Yeah.
Is it crazy? No, I mean, yeah.
I mean, I think it was expected, but it's just when you actually hear it, I wasn't necessarily expecting it this morning. And that was going to be, in consideration for being one of my predictions, early election and resignation of Trudeau. But, Trudeau beat me to it.
Yeah, I mean, expected, but you never know how long, the ego can hang on. So we'll see.
Oh, and I was expecting it had some staying power. Yeah, at least for a little while, but.
All right. Do you want to just, before we get into our predictions, I'm going to talk a little bit about not totally a year in review, but just a quick look at some of the research that we've presented for the past year. But let's look at that poll question first, because I really appreciate this poll over the past week.
I don't know if we do want to say this because it will inflate your ego a bit and you'll never resign.
Speaking of egos.
Yeah. So for our 2025 prediction special, this show, whose predictions will perform the worst? And at 14% was Ryan. And then both me, Brennan, and Aaron were all tied at 29%. So you guys just think Ryan's going to be the best. The pressure's on now.
Yeah, I know. That's all it does.
And you pad your numbers. So
probably.
It mounts the pressure. I feel it right now. It feels
right.
It's a weight on my shoulders.
I'd actually we should calculate the track records now that we have a couple of years. And
no, let's not.
I'm 1 for 1.
Yeah, I know that mine's going to be very poor. So
yeah. So I mean, the people have have voted, and now they put the pressure on me. But no, I'm just saying I've got to execute over the course of this year. But clearly, they're confident that I can. And you guys are just hand in hand, and you're
you're a man of the people.
Yeah, I've been known as that many times. I've heard comments.
That head's just getting bigger and bigger.
Okay, so as we start our 2025 predictions show, I'm going to preface this by saying that economic forecasting is for fools. So our job really is to look at individual companies, focusing more on what we can control, helping our clients find and buy great growth and value companies to help them build simple 20 to 25 stock portfolios. Stocks like the following companies that we have recommended over the past 18 months. VitalHub up 180% over the past year. Cipher up 147.9% over the past year. Firan up 82% over the past year. Prodex from our US coverage up 192% over the past year, and Argan up 247% over the past year. This is not from their original recommendations, however. In the cases of VitalHub, for example, the stock was actually recommended in November 2023 at $3.24 and now is up 250%. Cypher, recommended in September of 2023, up now at $3.89, up now 281%. Fearon was originally recommended at $1.35. It's up 447%. These are companies you will not find from your big bank advisor. And in 2024, it was a great year for our research in this regard, finding undervalued companies, growth companies that you don't find from your big bank advisor. I've included these 5 companies, I think, there. As I will note, we don't often include companies that are in coverage as clients pay for that research. I include these because they are all currently holds in our research. There are several other companies that have increased 100% or more in our research just over the past year that are currently buys or close to buys, and I'm not going to include those today. I will also note we recently released our 2025 Canadian cash-rich profitable small cap report. M&A activity picked up in 2024, as you can see here. It's approximately about 60, how many companies was it? About 59, exactly. It was 59 companies that released. 6 of those included in the report were involved in a merger or were acquired or taken private, all at premium prices. This year's group, there's 75 companies in the report from 2025. Valuations are certainly elevated from where they were in 2024, but we would expect to see continued M&A activities in profitable net cash businesses. In fact, that's been a hallmark of this report, which never fails to identify takeover targets on an annual basis. That report is now to clients. We also expect to have some new recommendations in a smaller special report in our Canadian small cap research over the next 3 weeks. Okay, well, that will give you a brief overview of where we have been over the past year and where we're starting at this year. We can get into the predictions show.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say that's, incredible when you think about it, how some of those companies have performed. And it's not, what really makes it incredible is like, these aren't businesses where you're taking a massive speculation in terms of a technology that's unproven or a company that's not generating cash flow. These are established businesses that are generating free cash flow. They're not raising money from investors just to keep the lights on. They have free cash flow for that. And then they're able to reinvest that back in their businesses, make acquisitions, sell products or services into strong markets. And those are the types of returns that you see when you do the research and you find those right companies. So it's it was a good year last year. And,
what I would say too, that, I would be most proud of is that the fact that, one of my predictions actually was that small caps would outperform in 2024. Large caps once again outperformed small caps. All of those companies that I listed there were small caps, which significantly outperformed not only large caps, but small caps, which actually underperformed large caps last year. So from a valuation perspective, small caps were undervalued relative to large caps last year. But we still are in that position. But we have seen small cap valuations move higher. Perhaps I'll touch on that in an upcoming show. I think next week I might get into some valuations, generally speaking, because we had some full commentary in that report about the general market valuations, where we are historically and today. So I think I'll present that next week as a segment as well. But I guess we could just get into the predictions right now. I can start by reviewing my last year's predictions. Not incredibly happy about them, but there's some winners in there. But I will, and then get into my predictions for this year, and then we'll do the same thing for each of us analysts on the show today. My number one prediction was that small caps would outperform. That did not happen. What I would say is our small caps outperformed, and that is our job. Our job is not to make predictions. So we did our job as far as the broader markets in general speaking. Small caps did not outperform large caps. You had some of the largest of the large outperforming over the course of the year. The NVIDIAs, again, the Microsofts, the Amazons, the Metas, the Alphabets outperformed and dragged really the overall index higher, which dragged large caps higher versus small caps. There is an undervaluation right now of small caps versus large caps, but I would be cautious just to put your money into a small cap ETF. Again, not all small caps are the same, just like not all large caps. Look at those individual companies. So, and make sure you're buying a good quality business. There are some small caps, despite the fact that on average, they're undervalued relative to large caps, that are certainly overvalued. So you've got to be cautious wherever you're looking in the market right now. Make sure you're buying growth at a reasonable price, like we always stress. Another prediction I made was I doubled down on my AI prediction. This is where I said shenanigans would really start. Silly season, there will be a plethora of TSX ventured AI stocks. Investors should beware of this segment in 2024. AI continued to be a massive theme throughout the year. But AI stocks, just the AI stocks without underlying fundamentals didn't do so well in 2024. So I mean, you guys can tell me whether or not this was a win on that prediction.
No. I would give it. Can we give it a partial?
Sure.
I've kind of given myself a partial win on one of my predictions, which was half right and half wrong. So I'll give you half a point.
Yeah, I'd say half a point, because there wasn't really any big, at least as far as I know, big AI blow-ups or anything like that. There was no fraud or anything that I heard of, or at least headline level fraud. That would be the full point for me. But there was definitely some poor performers and just some really overvaluations that came down in that space.
All right, we'll give myself a half a point in that one.
Right.
Housing prices, this was the third prediction, will start to finally decline the second half of 2024. Rates will eventually reset there. They eventually reset. Now, in the US, they actually, at the start of the year, as I understand, declined. In Canada, I mean, I believe they did a slight bit, but, they ended up slightly for the year, as I understand. So I guess we give myself a full point on that one. We give myself nothing on that one. I don't think, because I think they ended slightly. I mean, it curtailed the crazy increases that we had seen, but, there was still an increase in prices.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I made a general prediction too that there would be a proliferation of deep fakes. Well, I mean, there has been. I think that was a pretty easy prediction. There has been, there was the Taylor Swift incidents, and there was a bunch of stuff that went on. So I don't know. You guys tell me whether or not. I think that was low hanging fruit. But
you want to know what you kind of just gave yourself a free point there. But we all do that every once in a while. So we'll give you the point.
You're setting yourself up there too, aren't you?
Yeah. It's true. So let's get really what we're really looking at. Forget about last year. Listen to us in terms of stock recommendations. Forget about the economic predictions. They are for fools, as we say. But let's get to now that I've said that, let's get to my economic predictions for the course of this. So prediction number one is that stubbornly high inflation does not end below 2% in 2025. So the Federal Reserve and interest rates, some people expected a downturn in 2022. And again, I go back here, in 2023 and in 2024 due to the Federal Reserve's hawkish interest rate decisions. The Fed raised rates rapidly in 2022 and held them high throughout 2023 and much of 2024. But in the last 4 months of 2024, the Fed has cut rates 3 times, most recently on December 18th. Inflation has declined significantly from its post-pandemic highs. However, it will remain stubbornly high in 2025. And the Fed hints that fewer rate cuts will be the way we become a reality due to its persistent inflation. My specific prediction here, would be that the PCE price index, the Fed's preferred inflation gauge, which is currently at 2.4%, will end 2025 above 2%. Remember, the Fed seeks to achieve inflation rate at around 2% over the long term. Okay, any comments on that, or should I just go through it? To prediction number 2.
Yeah.
You're in favor of that prediction? Whatever. I don't know. All right. New capital gains proposal in Canada dies in 2025. Now, if the government falls, the capital gains proposal will die. In tax law, it is very common for many technical tax changes to die when an election is called, but it is also very common for such technical changes to be reintroduced by the new government, even if the new government is being led by a different political party. Why? There's my specific prediction there, but why? Because such amendments are often technical cleanups of the Income Tax Act and generally do not have broad-based application. In other words, most amendments are not controversial. The capital gains proposals, however, it wouldn't fall into that category. They are broad-based and certainly controversial here, I would say. So that's the specific, if I could say it, prediction. The Liberals' proposed new capital gains tax will either die as legislation, not be passed, or be repealed, if we call it that, in 2025. I'm going to say, as an aside here, if the capital gains tax increase does not move forward or is removed, is another example of why one should not base their investment strategies on proposed or even enacted policy from a sitting government, as that policy can be changed in the near or midterm. At the time the capital gains tax was proposed, we fielded many, many questions on whether or not clients should immediately sell a number of the companies they held that had strong gains in their portfolio at that time. We will most often advise that you should only sell a stock for stock-specific or investment-specific reasons, like it is overvalued, not due to a tax issue in most cases, as these concerns are most often secondary and the tax situation can be unpredictable. The most important element in investing success is holding the right companies over the long term, not a tax strategy. So that is my soapbox on that issue. And generally speaking, in terms of making investment decisions based on what a sitting government's policy is. Prediction number 3 here. Information technology continues to outperform the S&P 500 in 2025. The specific prediction there would be the S&P 500 Information Technology Index will end higher than the S&P 500 index in 2025. We can see here, this is the S&P 500 over the past 15 years, split into its individual segments there. Information technology has been the top performer over the past 15 years. I would say there is some overvaluation in the sector, but if we are going to get, or in the US, if they are going to get some tax cuts, that sector will benefit. And I would see a positive year, at least one more year out of that sector and outperforming. I think it'll be a volatile year for the information technology sector, but outperformance. I think this one is a very hard prediction within a given year because there's a high degree of volatility. As you can see, the best year in terms of information technology was about 57%, which bests almost all except the energy. And then the worst year was negative 28%, which is on the higher end as well. So there's a high degree of volatility in that sector. So prediction number 4, Trump's drill baby drill helps energy service stocks more than energy producers. Now, it's likely that energy sector will also be impacted by deregulation with President Trump's campaign pledge to drill baby drill. Policy such as this often takes real time to take hold. It doesn't happen just like that. So the prediction might be right ultimately, but can take a year or more to cut through the existing red tape. Increasing drilling could help energy stocks in some ways, but hurt in others. We've said that. Fewer regulation could make it easier for oil companies to do their business. However, higher domestic oil production could cause oil prices to fall and negatively affect oil producers. Higher drilling should help energy service stocks. This tends to lag, so the impact may not actually be felt until closer to the end of 2025. The specific prediction or how we'll track it here, the Fidelity Select Portfolios Energy Service Portfolio, it's kind of a fund, or any other good U.S. energy service index or ETF that we can find will outperform the iShares U.S. oil and gas exploration production ETF in 2025. Okay, now this hinges on the ability of Donald to actually enact anything in terms of bringing forward a policy that allows or easily allows drillers to drill, production companies to drill more. There are natural market forces here that no sitting politician can control. If you drill more and you increase the supply, the price comes down. That typically has producers then not drilling, and thus their costs somehow came down a very significant amount. The same thing can be said for energy service companies. If the producers aren't as profitable, they're not as profitable. So this one is kind of on a razor's edge here. I'm going to finally make my additional predictions, and then we can comment on these. These are for a little bit of fun, so much fun. I think that Mr. Beast is going to be offered a cabinet position in 2025. Barron Trump will be offered a position as his father's key political advisor, but instead opt to try his hand as a power forward in the NBA.
What team?
I'd say the Lakers. I mean, come on. Anybody who just brings in any name, it's the Lakers. So there you go.
That's true.
Trudeau will resign in 2024 because we don't know that information yet. And Trudeau will likely face scandal in 2025. I'm going to predict it's involving SpongeBob. So thank you. That's it for mine.
Nice.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, I think like the inflation one is a good one. You know, it's staying above 2%.
Not the SpongeBob one?
No. I mean, maybe the SpongeBob one.
The SpongeBob one is, it's risky, but I like that you're taking the risk there. And,
it's oddly specific.
I'm going to say there will be some scandal with Trudeau. And
yeah, but
whether it's involving SpongeBob or not.
Yeah.
We don't know.
I'm surprised one of those last ones didn't involve me. Thankfully. Nice.
I'll have one at the end. Don't worry. At the end, involving Brennan.
Okay.
Who's going next? Aaron?
I can step up here. So we'll take a look at how I performed in 2024 and whether or not I can take over Ryan's position as the top forecaster at Keystone Financial. So my first prediction was
very tough.
It's but it's aggressive, but the Bank of Canada, my first prediction was that the Bank of Canada and the Fed will start to cut rates specifically in Q3 2024. All right. So I was pretty close on this because the Fed, they started cutting in September. That's Q3. But the BOC started cutting in June, which is the last month of Q2. So what do you guys think on this? Is it a point?
At least half a point.
That's a half point.
Yeah.
Very close. I gave myself a half point because at the end of the day, I was being specific with Q3 and on the bank.
That's a tough prediction.
I didn't quite get it right, but
it's almost a point.
Yeah, we want to make these a little bit challenging. So I give myself
3/4
a point there. Sorry?
3/4 of a point. All right, I'm done.
No, I half
Keep
is
going.
Good. Half is good. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so prediction number 2, another revolutionary advancement in AI released during 2024 and continuation of the AI arms race. So, I kind of just gave myself, this was a gimme here. Of course, this happened. I don't think that was going to be any any surprise to people. But what I was really looking for was something that was quite big and newsworthy. And there were quite a few things. So OpenAI, which is the developer and owner of ChatGPT, they released several foundational models, GPT-4 Omni, as well as their O1 model. They announced an O3 model for next year. Other companies as well, like Google Gemini, also released big upgrades to their models. But probably the biggest story of the year when it came to AI was just the open source community catching up to the closed source. So basically, since the release of ChatGPT, OpenAI has really had for a lot of the period of time since then a commanding lead in the AI space over everybody. But over 2024, we saw other companies really narrow that and in some cases surpass it in different areas. But the open source, led by Meta actually with their Llama 3 model, was the first open source model that was competitive with these closed source models. So I give myself the point on this. But again, this was an easy one. So, and then number 3 was that dividend stocks will outperform in 2024. So I guess this is kind of vague, and I could make the argument that I was referring to dividend stocks outperforming their previous performance, like say in 2023. For those of you, just a little bit of recent history, as interest rates started coming up in 2022, 2023, companies that are seen as being interest rate sensitive are going to experience challenges due to, in some cases, higher interest payments on their debt, but also because if they're dividend stocks, that dividend yield competes with the fixed income market, and now yields on those securities are more attractive. So unfortunately, in this one, I have to give myself 0 points. And the reason for this is that although dividend stock performance did improve, some of the key sectors certainly did not outperform the market average. So one of the charts that I talked a little bit about when I made this prediction was the S&P REIT index. And certainly once interest rates started to come down, we saw a lot of interest flow back into the REIT space. Big move up in share prices, but that peaked in the September, October range, and then since then they've come back down basically to where they started at the beginning of the year. So certainly REITs overall did not outperform, and then utilities better positive performance for the year, but still only 8.5%. Now this doesn't include the yield. This is just the share prices or the share price of the index, but still underperforming the TSX. So wasn't quite the year yet, but maybe we'll see some better performance in 2025 as interest rates potentially continue to come down, and people move out of bonds and look more to higher yielding dividend stocks for those income streams. Any comments on any of these before we go into my
You
prediction?
tied me. That's my comment.
Oh, are we tied? Okay.
I think.
Okay.
Did we go 1.5? I mean, again, I mean, overall, economic predictions are, forecasts are for fools. That's what I say. And, like we're focused on the individual recommendations to our clients. But, I'm really still interested, having said that, in your 2025 predictions. Let's get to it.
Excellent. Okay. Even though you're quite confident that most of them will not come true.
Not
okay.
suck.
Well, let's get into it. I share your confidence, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So predictions for 2025. Prediction number 1. The Bank of Canada will cut rates by at least another 100 basis points in 2025. So right now, the rate 3.25, coming down from the peak of about 5%. So we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rate cuts and 2 50 basis point rate cuts. The last one just being in December. So we're now down to 3.25, and based on my prediction here, that would bring us down to at least 2.25. So what am I basing this on? A couple different things. Mostly I'm looking at the inflation rate. We can see over this period since inflation has started to come down. It had peaked actually in 2022 at 8.1%. But at the start of this period, just under 6% in January of 2023. And now, as of November 2024, the December numbers aren't available yet, but November numbers were 1.9%. So this is actually below the target band. The target band of the Bank of Canada is between 2 and 3%. So we're below. I would expect to see more rate cuts. And, really when we look at the Canadian economy, we've definitely seen a lot of softening. I think that there's going to be challenges just overall as we go through 2025 and some continued uncertainties. So we'll see more rate cuts, at least 100 basis points, potentially more, probably not a lot more. Now, prediction number 2, I'm going to predict that Canadian REITs are going to have a better year in 2025. They are due eventually, and they'll produce a total return between 10% and 15% for the year. Okay, so this looks like a decent return. It's still going to be below what the TSX did last year on average overall. But, really what I'm looking at here, if I break this out, is I look at an average income yield right now of about 5%. It's actually a little bit over 5% just for the index overall. That's a pretty solid yield, especially as the yields on fixed income continue to go down. If rates continue to decline in 2025, people are going to start looking again at the higher yielding dividend stocks for that stream of income. So you're getting that 5% yield as a base. And then I'm looking at about 5 to 10% appreciation in the unit prices overall on aggregate. So if you add these together, you're getting a total return in the range of 10 to 15%. Probably it's closer to 10%. REITs overall, some REITs have performed well over the last 5 years, but REITs overall haven't really returned much in terms of capital appreciation over the last 5 years. So they've primarily been an income investment, and that's why that sector has struggled as interest rates have come up. Now that we're seeing interest rates go in the opposite direction, it is likely and highly probable that more capital starts to flow in to the REIT sector. So that is my prediction on REITs. And now we'll get into some less financial predictions. So prediction number 3, I'm going to predict that the Conservative Party of Canada will win a majority in the upcoming election with at least 180 seats. So I'm being specific here with the number of seats. I think that most people certainly are going to agree that they're the favorites to win. But 180 seats would be a pretty resounding victory for the Conservative Party. One of the reasons for that, they typically don't get many seats from Quebec. Usually they get about 10 seats out of 78, I believe, in Quebec, whereas the Liberals, will usually get 35, 40 seats. So this would be a big victory for them if they were able to do that. But I just figured I would put in a snapshot of what the polls looked like at the start of the year. So this is before the resignation of Trudeau that we heard about this morning. And the Conservatives actually started the year at a high in their polling numbers, so 44%. And normally I don't really pay a lot of attention to polls. I would say that, they seem to be wrong more often than they're right, much like, our macroeconomic forecasts. But if you look at these numbers here, right at the start of the year, the Conservatives had more than the Liberals, the New Democrats, and the Green Party combined. So that's a commanding lead. So I think that they're well positioned. And with the resignation of Trudeau, I would have to think that helps them as well. Obviously, some people would say they'd be better off to go up against Trudeau, and I could understand that argument. But certainly it's unusual that a leader, sitting prime minister, would resign in a situation like this, and it really is an admittal, I think, of the Liberals that he hasn't done a great job. So in any event, whether you agree with that or not, this is one of my predictions. And then prediction number 4 is that Trump Media and Technology Group, which is basically True Social, will be acquired by Twitter, currently X. So I actually did this is a price chart of True Social, Trump Media over the past year. So I actually did a segment, a Your Stock, Our Take segment on True Social back in April. And my assessment of the company was that financially, I think that I referred to it as a dumpster fire. There was really nothing financial to analyze. I mean, there was almost nothing there. But yet it was still an $8 billion market cap company. So wildly overvalued by any valuation metric that we could apply to it. But the one point that I did make was that, I could see a speculative upside because at the time, Trump was still banned from Twitter, not using Twitter. I don't know if he is banned, but he was not using Twitter. And if he won the election, then there could be a argument to be made that True Social becomes, a major media platform of the United States government. But then the election happened, and there really was no upside post-election. And in fact, the share price now is roughly around the point that it was then. And of course, the reason for that is Trump and Elon Musk are now seem like they're BFFs, at least for the time being. And Trump's back on Twitter. So there really is no need, as I can see it, for Truth Social. The whole point of Truth Social was a platform for Donald Trump, and also because there is an argument that Trump and his supporters were making that conservative voices or right-wing voices were being silenced on Twitter. But that is no longer a case that anybody can make. So it doesn't really seem like there's going to be a point for this social media platform. I could be wrong, but Elon Musk with almost $400 billion now certainly could extend a nice little sweetheart deal and just basically roll it into his own company with little effort. And then Trump can claim that it was the greatest investment in the history of investments. So I don't know if the actual transaction would happen in 2025, but I'm definitely going to say that an announcement will be made.
I'd say in terms of your predictions on I think it was number 3 about the Conservatives winning 180 seats, it probably, now that we have new information on Trudeau resigning after I made my prediction, I will note that, that probably it's going to depend on who he's running against. If it's Mark Carney, it might be a different situation than if it's Chrystia Freeland or Melanie Joly or something like that, who you can easily paint with the same brush as Trudeau, as they were, part of the cabinet for years. If it's Mark Carney, maybe he comes in as somewhat of an outsider, but again, he probably can be painted with the same brush. I think the Liberals are flushed out regardless in this election on who is the leader, but maybe they get a little more traction if it's Mark Carney. And the pitch then would be, now we're fiscally responsible. This is the former governor of the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England. And, I'm sure you could see the pitch. I think that people are right now fairly fed up, relatively speaking, with the Liberal Party. So they, whoever's in power, but maybe you win a little more seats if you bring in the right leader. If it's the wrong leader, it could go the opposite way. So, that prediction is going to, I think, hinge on that slightly in terms of your 180 seats. On Truth Social, I don't understand how it still has that valuation. They had $1 million in revenue in the last quarter
right now, which, valuation wise, as I said, there's no way to value the company even. I mean, it's
3.4 million
right?
trailing.
And I thought that the speculation almost made a little bit of sense pre-election. If you got that bounce, you're basically betting that Trump wins. But, that didn't help the stock because now Trump is back in good graces with...
On a normalized basis, I think they lost $230 million in the last year, and like on 3.8 million in revenues, and you've got what, a $7-8 billion market cap.
About $8 billion,
it's not. I mean, fundamentally,
well, if they're going to
doesn't matter if we
said 200 million
in losses.
Yeah,
300 or 200 something normalized.
Yeah, so if they're going to burn through that amount of money and they're not generating any revenue, then they need to raise it or get debt. And I just think that they'll work out a deal for the public optics of it.
Yeah, and then we're just looking strictly at the fundamentals behind the business. Like doesn't matter who's in charge, doesn't matter what it's called.
If the numbers were great and the analysis was great, I would provide the analysis. I mean,
there's nothing to analyze there really at this point.
No,
fundamentally. No. Okay, well, that's good. You guys got any more comments on that, or does someone want to step up and bring their?
Do you want to go first, Brett, or
yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, I'll do mine first.
The pathetic, not prophetic, the pathetic predictions from last year and the.
Hey, I won the previous year, and we're looking pretty hot this year too.
Excellent. Let's see.
So, my first prediction was oil using the WTI will remain below $90 for the entire year when it goes a cent above it at any point in the year. And this was correct by $3. It peaked out about $87. And my prediction at this time was saying there was no major catalyst. One did appear that almost broke that $90 barrier with just the conflict in the Middle East, causing shipping to really be impossible around that area at the same price, at least. And that's when you got that $87, but it came back down to a much lower range throughout the year. So 1 for 1. The second one was 70% of the S&P 500 companies will have positive returns in 2024. For comparison, 2023 saw 62% of the companies rise in price over the year. And this year, or 2024, saw 371 companies that were positive for the year, or 74% of the companies. So that one was correct. And now the US Fed is going to manage to have a soft landing. At the time, there was the conversation of everyone was expecting a recession when we were in 2023. And then by the end of the year, it was kind of, are they going to be able to actually manage a hard landing or a soft landing, or is it going to be a hard landing where either it's a recession or inflation comes back? And here's where I'll let you guys lay in a bit if you do believe it was a soft landing, because I would say it is, but it's not a precise term or anything like that. So
I want to give you a point, because, you know, even though it wasn't exactly correct, the options that everybody was looking at, you know, as we were coming out of COVID and rates were going up, it wasn't whether or not there was going to be a recession. Everybody expected a recession. It was just a matter of whether it'd be a hard or a soft landing. But then, you know, particularly and especially in the United States, there was no recession. So, well, you know, it wasn't a soft landing. It was, you know,
like I specifically put no substantial increase in inflation, no recession, no technical 2 quarters. So,
yeah,
I give it to you.
What do you guys think, Brett or Brennan?
I'm in a generous mood, although I can't speak. So yeah, no, it's good. I'm kidding. It's a point.
All right, then we can move on to the next one, assuming Brennan agrees.
I agree. I just want to see
my back this time.
Though, so.
Well, who doesn't? And my last one, which was wrong, it was very similar vein to Aaron's prediction. So he influenced me clearly. It was
don't listen to him.
Yeah, no, we do these independently.
When you steal my predictions.
Yeah, that is what happens. And I looked over on his sheet and I got it wrong. So yeah, the prediction for those listeners who can't see the screen right now is Canadian REITs will perform well in 2024. They'd have a greater than 5% return and use the S&P TSX REIT index. But unfortunately, no, it had a negative return of about 4%. So that was clearly wrong.
So you got 3. Well, you're tied with me and Aaron combined. So that's good.
Yeah.
And I'm tied with.
This is another prediction? Yeah.
No, 5. This is a new one. No, this is
okay. This is this year.
Yeah. This is this year's prediction. Okay. So this is a nice contrarian prediction. I am saying the Canadian dollar by the end of the year will have appreciated against the US dollar. Now, I was talking to Brennan about this earlier, and I would say the next few months, probably maybe into Q2 even, that we will see the US dollar continue to strengthen. But I think by the end of the year, we're going to see Trump's tariff, that really strong 20+% tariffs, really be weakened. They'll be watered down to some degree if they do get implemented at all. So then we'll see some little upside from the Canadian dollar from that. We'll see U.S. interest rates start to drop a bit more. Right now, I think they have a couple priced into the market prices. We will see more drops than what the market's expecting. That puts weakness on the U.S. dollar in the short term. A couple of things like that. So that's my prediction right now. So below $1.43.6.
Bold.
Yeah, which is bold right now, since many of the sentiment online is how poor the Canadian economy and how great the U.S. is. So a bit of contrarian there. So moving on to my next one, here's my, I guess, psychological short. This is something which I would never actually want to short, is Palantir, PLTR on the NASDAQ, will close lower by the end of the year. Before this recording, it was 76.49 trading. And this was actually the best performer in 2024 for the S&P 500, so companies in there. I think it was only included about halfway through, but I'm counting that. And it returned something like 330-ish%, somewhere in that ballpark. And I think it's just such an overvalued company at this point, but it has that really cult mentality behind it. So it's something which I would never want to short. People will just keep on buying at any price. But if we do see any pullback, I think it could be very significant and very sudden.
Yeah, it's a valuation call, right? Maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's something which I would never, even though we don't short it, Keystone, even myself, I wouldn't want to short anything like this, because it's just so concerning when you have a cult mentality like that. So my next one is, we will have a more volatile year. So this is the SIBO realized volatility index, but you can do it by hand if you wanted to. They had about a 12.4, that'll be 12.4% standard deviation on their last year for the S&P 500. and I'm saying it'll be higher than that. I'd even go as far as saying it'll be above 14 at least. So just for some context, that'll be percentage, and then it's 68% of the time is you'll have it either be up 12.4% or down 12.4% in the year. That's what that will be giving you, and they base that off of some option futures on the SPX, which is a bit more complicated, but effectively you can just say it's the price of the S&P 500. So I'm saying the movement in the index will be higher than what was in the previous year. I know that one's a bit more technical than usual.
I like that one though. I do think that it's going to be a bit of a volatile year just with valuation.
And I'll even go farther. I only have it wrote as higher, but I'll say at least 14. So if it's only an inch above, give it a bit more, make it a bit more difficult. And then my last one for this year is Bitcoin will not only set an all-time high during the year, but it's actually going to end lower than 100K throughout the year. And I'll even make this one a bit harder than I've written here, just because it is so close to the all-time high. I'll say it goes above 130K as well, just to make it a bit harder as well.
But then
ends below 100K. Okay. So yeah, I think it's going to do what it has throughout the previous Bitcoin cycles, where every 4 years you'll see a pop up, and then by the end of the year it comes back down, as well as Trump saying there's going to be some sort of reserve. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think the sentiment's going to just really build up once it starts to get into office. The first quarter or first 2 quarters of the year, you're going to see Bitcoin really see an upside, maybe go into the third quarter, but then come back down once that FOMO and that really headline hitting terms and whatever they want to say really wears off.
So you're recommending that everybody buy now and then sell or short when it hits 130?
Well, yeah, of course, and 100 times leverage as well, just to make sure that you get the best of it.
Yeah.
Full disclaimer, that was
don't actually do that.
Not
you
sarcasm. I was going to say, you get somebody that they said.
Do not do that.
Yeah, do not do that. Don't play leverage on something that's routinely goes above 100% annualized volatility.
Or any of these macroeconomic calls.
Don't bet on my predictions. They might be better than Ryan's, but don't bet on mine.
Yeah, it's impossible.
So yeah, that was my last one. I don't know if you had any other comments.
No. I mean, I think that you did a good job last year. Well, obviously that was luck, and we'll see you get crushed this year. No, I'm just kidding. I think you did. I think you did a good job
last year.
I won last year.
Oh, last year, and then
we're going 2 for 2 this year, unless Brennan can upset me.
No.
Brennan.
It ain't happening.
I did also predict last year that Brennan will not get a lady over the course of the year. So.
And that was wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong.
Well, no, he was more correct than wrong, I would say.
Boom! So you can add a point to mine.
Yeah, I think you're still under.
You guys still win. You can have
my predictions on Brennan are always.
It's always the same one, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is true. But yeah, I'm not expecting to do very good any of these years. So, but my first one from 2024. So I said on an absolute basis, I predicted that utility stocks will perform better in 2024 than in 2023. This was kind of a softball. And I was measuring the success using BMO's Equal Weight Utilities Index, ETF, or ZUT on the TSX. And essentially the basis for my prediction was, Aaron was saying this earlier, that essentially rates would be going down, providing, cheaper financing to utilities, which are, generally highly levered or have more debt on the balance sheet, as well as, higher sentiment of dividend stocks increasing as investors flock from bonds to higher yielding stocks. So in 2023, the index was down about 11%. And in 2024, it was up 11%. So my prediction was correct. But
and that's
again,
total return, right, Brennan?
This is not total return. This is not including dividends. So that is good that you're pointing that out. This is just capital appreciation, or just the share price, the index price, not including dividends. So the next year, I predicted small caps would outperform in 2024, primarily due to the value gap between the S&P 500 large cap and the S&P 600, measuring the relative performance between these two. And I was wrong. It ended up being a very strong year for the S&P 500, up 26%, driven by the Magnificent Seven. So that's Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Meta, Google, Tesla, and NVIDIA, which produced more than half of the S&P 500's 26% annual return. Meanwhile, the S&P 600 returned about 12% in the year. So, wrong.
Again, I'll chime in and say it's our job for our recommendations in that segment to outperform, not for the index in general. So as long as we're doing our
basically
job,
what Ryan's saying here is that Brennan's horrible prediction performance is not a reflection.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Thank you.
And he's done an entire YouTube segment before on why small cap ETFs are poor.
Yeah. This is correct. So my next one here, I said on an absolute basis, Tesla would decline during 2024 from its then current price of $256.50. And this was based on Tesla's declining profit margins as they slashed prices to maintain market share, potential lower demand with elevated interest rates, and more competition from large manufacturers releasing EVs. And I couldn't have been more wrong. The stock briefly declined following slower growth and reduced margins, prompting me to take a victory lap in April on the podcast when the stock was down 30%. And on that podcast in April, I stated, we all know that because I'm bringing it up, taking a victory lap, the stock is probably going to go up to $300 by the end of the year. And despite the first 9-month revenue flat year over year and earnings down and deliveries missing analyst estimates, once Trump was elected president, the stock went parabolic given Musk's ties with Trump. So again,
May I interject here? I actually think that technically speaking, Brennan gets a point on this. Because if you look at the wording here, he says that Tesla will decline during 2024. He doesn't say that it will end up lower at the end of the year, only that at some point during the year.
That is the worst.
And it did.
It's the most softball prediction ever.
At some point, it'll go slightly down, even intraday.
If it goes down 1 cent at any point.
No,
I think we all know where Brennan went.
Although I think that Aaron brings up a very, very intelligent point. No, it is wrong because, I should have used the wording, end the year. Which is what I was meaning. That was what was in my mind. So I can't give myself a point there, even though Aaron brings up an intelligent point.
Part of the reason I just want to say why we do this predictions show is it's more just for fun, but we also get to make fun of like some of the actual techniques that real prognosticators employ to make themselves look better. And this would be one of those techniques to make a prediction that is very ambiguous and can be interpreted in many different ways. So that pretty much no matter what happens, you can say, I was right.
This is true.
But anyways.
Okay. And then my for fun one, which I know doesn't mean anything to you guys, but
I forgot.
I said one was that my golf game was going to improve and I would break into the 70s at my home course. Well, I'm happy to report that did happen. My handicap went down from a 15 at the beginning of the year to a 9.5. With my best round of the year at Wildwood being a 73. I honestly didn't think that I had that in me, but it happened.
Now, can we be confident that this is not an AI generated image?
You can be very confident. Yes. I think that, and honestly, I mean, this is just for my own ego anyway.
Into there? Is that
true?
Well, actually, I have like every single player has to sign off on it.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
As you can see at the bottom of every single image, it says request a test because I haven't had anybody attest any of these scores. So realistically, anyways, it's just for me. So
does this include the time you started at the tee and walked to the hole and dropped it?
It's more interesting to start peeling back the layers of this story.
But no, I was proud of my golf game, but I mean, it doesn't really matter. If we look at my financial predictions, I was 1 for 3. Again, with the only one being right was, my softball saying that utilities would perform better in 2024 than their really weak year of 2023. So that was my only one that was right.
Economic predictions, not your stock recommendation.
No, of course.
Brett wins. Ryan and I tie.
Yes.
And Brennan.
And now let's go into my 2025 predictions. Yeah, if you guys could send me a participation medal, my mom would be happy with that.
Your room is already clogged.
She'll put them with the others.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So my first one here, this is sort of a 2-in-1 here, as I'm predicting, like Aaron, that Pierre Poilievre, his Conservative Party is going to see a massive landslide victory in Canada's 2025 federal election and will win a majority government. I'm not indicating exactly how many seats like Aaron did, but I think that there will be a majority. And this will in turn increase foreign direct investment in Canada in 2025. So, I've got a poll up here. And polls are signaling, that Pierre is going to win. Obviously, like we were saying, this is subject to change, especially considering today, at the time, we're recording this podcast, Trudeau has stepped down from the leader of the Liberal Party due to pressure. But I do think that it will be a decisive win for Conservatives. And given Pierre's positive business environment that he wants to promote, speeding up approvals to build oil refineries, liquefied natural gas plants, nuclear facilities, and hydropower, I believe that this will potentially lead to more foreign direct investment in Canada and for it to remain above $15 billion per quarter on average in 2025. If we look back from 1981 to 2024, it averaged about $9 billion per quarter. But again, this might actually take time. It might be longer, even if he does, accelerate foreign direct investment. 2025 might be quite an early year to actually gauge. But anyways, I have no problem being wrong, as I was in 2024. So my next one is, if Trump can end the Russia-Ukraine war, it will take much longer than the 24 hours he announced and will not end until the second half of 2025 if he can, in fact, broker a deal. And while I really think that, the 24-hour comment was just, the typical fiery comment or comments from Trump, I am predicting that if he can stop the war quickly, it will not end until the second half of 2025. Now, I really hope this prediction is wrong and he can end it sooner than later with a good deal for Ukraine. But I think that Putin will be tough at the negotiating table as his army continues to grind forward on the front lines, and Ukraine will not roll over given Putin's disregard for past ceasefire agreements. Now, moving on. Number 3 here, I predict that MicroStrategy will end the year below its current trading range of about $380. I think that that's where it is right now. So this is essentially a bet against Bitcoin. So I'm being a bit of a contrarian from Brett. So it's a bet against Bitcoin for the year after its tremendous 2024, where it was up 125%, as well as the reduction of MicroStrategy's equity value premium to its Bitcoin net asset value. And as Brett discussed on the podcast back in December of 2024, when he covered MicroStrategy, if we take the asset value of Bitcoin and strip off the debt, we're seeing MicroStrategy stock trade at a premium to its Bitcoin NAV of approximately 2.5 times. So that is, essentially my bearish case for MicroStrategy. And last but not least, my fun one, Brennan gets a girlfriend in 2025 and Ryan will stop bugging him about it. And here's me with a bunch of ladies in Disneyland. I've been hanging out with a lot of ladies lately.
Is that not an AI image?
I'll show you the original. This is the original. So now we know what Ryan and Brett would look like if they were of the female gender.
What the hell is happening there?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Anyways, those are my predictions for the year. I thought that was a great
Get it back. I don't want to look at this. There you go.
No. Anyways, yeah, that's those are my predictions.
Yeah,
so
bold
we'll see.
On number
probably
3
lose.
going against the 2-time reigning champ, Brett.
Yep.
Yeah, and
exactly.
It's really bold to say that it would take longer than 24 hours for the war to end.
Well, no, I said that it's going to
One day.
happen. I said that it's going to happen
know.
in the second half of the year. Yes. So I did actually, make it longer than 24 hours.
Gonna end June 30th now.
Yeah, probably.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's our show for this week. I'm excited to get into the year. Again, like we said, we're looking at putting together a report on some Canadian small caps to to buy to start 2025. We got some other special reports coming out, Canadian Dividend All-Star, and we're looking at some US new research that's on the horizon right now. So excellent, excited to get into that for 2025. If you guys got any further comments, or should we just put this one to bed? I think we're good.
All right, put you guys to bed.
Probably.
I'm gonna get to bed here soon. Yeah. No, as always, if you're watching this on YouTube, smash that subscribe button. If you are listening to this wherever you consume your podcasts, rate and review us. As always, I'd like to wish you profitable investing. Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.